Candace Owens has just said what millions were too afraid to whisper. Meghan Markle lied about her pregnancy, but this time, it's not just gossip. It's not whispers, it's receipts. Timelines, insider testimony, and medical contradictions so glaring, they don't just raise questions, they shatter the fairy tale completely. Take Harry's own memoir. He wrote that Meghan had 2 epidurals and was back at Frogmore Cottage within 2 hours. Anyone who understands childbirth knows those words don't belong in the same sentence. Childbirth isn't a drive-through. Medical professionals call Harry's account flat-out impossible. And that's just the beginning. Because what Candace Owens revealed isn't one contradiction. It's an entire web of lies that reaches straight to the heart of the palace itself. So what do we believe? The polished palace press release? Or the raw, conflicting fragments from Harry's own mouth? And the insiders who lived it? Stay with me, because if Meghan's pregnancy story doesn't add up, we're not just talking about one birth. We're talking about a cover-up that goes all the way to the top. To understand why Candace Owens' allegation detonated like a bombshell, we have to rewind to the official story the palace gave us. It was May 6, 2019. Archie Harrison was born at the Portland Hospital in London. At least, that's the narrative. The image was carefully curated, Meghan, radiant and glowing, under the care of top consultants in a luxury suite where chandeliers sparkle, flowers line the marble halls, and champagne flows for new mothers celebrating their arrivals. But here's what the brochures don't tell you. Portland isn't your typical NHS hospital with emergency wards and trauma units. It's a boutique facility designed to pamper wealthy clients, not to handle serious medical crises. Behind those sparkling chandeliers, the medical safety net is thinner than the palace wants you to know. Now layer in the contradictions that started piling up immediately. Meghan herself has given 3 completely different explanations for why the press wasn't properly notified. First, she said it was to avoid blocking a hospital entrance. Then she claimed it was punishment for racist media coverage. Later, she insisted they did notify reporters, who simply didn't show up. 3 different versions of the same story, none consistent. And here's what really sent shockwaves through royal circles. For centuries, the Queen was to be notified the moment any royal went into labor. According to multiple palace sources, that notification never happened. A tradition stretching back generations, simply ignored. Watch the press footage from that day. Seasoned royal correspondents, people who'd covered decades of births, weddings, and state events, looked genuinely confused. They're checking their phones, huddling in urgent conversations, clearly scrambling to understand why their usual sources had gone silent. These aren't rookie reporters. These are professionals who pride themselves on knowing exactly what's happening inside palace walls. When you stack these pieces together, the picture gets murky fast. A luxury hospital with limited emergency capacity, an official timeline that shifts with every retelling, and royal correspondents who, for the first time in their careers, had to admit they had no idea what was actually true. Now comes the medical contradiction that stopped doctors dead in their tracks. Harry's memoir claims Meghan received 2 separate epidurals during labor and was home within 2 hours of delivery. Let me break down why this is medically impossible. An epidural isn't like taking aspirin. It's a catheter carefully inserted into the spine, monitored continuously throughout labor. For Meghan to need 2 completely separate epidural procedures, the first catheter would have been removed mid-labor and reinserted, something anesthesiologists describe as extraordinarily rare, only done when serious complications arise. It's like installing 2 steering wheels in the same car just to keep it moving. But here's where it gets truly impossible. The drive from Portland Hospital to Frogmore Cottage takes about an hour, which means Meghan would have needed to deliver, recover from major medical intervention, complete discharge paperwork, and leave, all within 60 minutes, after receiving not 1, but 2 spinal procedures that require extended monitoring. One anesthesiologist I consulted said bluntly, "That timeline isn't just unlikely, it's medically reckless. Women who receive epidurals remain under observation for hours, not minutes. The risks, blood pressure drops, spinal complications can't be rushed, regardless of how much you're paying. Now add the emotional layer that makes this even stranger." Harry describes the birth like a wellness retreat. Birthing balls, relaxation tubs, candles glowing like some Instagram spa experience. But Meghan was in her late 30s during a high-risk pregnancy. These situations typically require stricter monitoring, more medical intervention, definitely not mood lighting and aromatherapy. But here's the darkest piece. Multiple sources have linked Meghan to preeclampsia, dangerously high blood pressure that's genuinely life-threatening. Women with preeclampsia don't get sent home in hours. They're kept on IV drips under constant surveillance, with specialists monitoring around the clock. So how do we reconcile a life-threatening medical condition requiring intensive monitoring with Harry's glowing spa night fairy tale, followed by a quick trip home? The answer is simple: we can't. And watching Harry tell this story in interviews, there's something almost rehearsed about his delivery. The way he smiles at the right moments, pauses for effect, like he's reciting lines rather than recalling genuine memories. Here's where Harry's memoir details take this from suspicious to completely surreal, and where you can see the fairy tale construction in real time. Harry fondly recalled accidentally inhaling all of Meghan's nitrous oxide during labor, treating it like a bumbling dad-to-be comedy routine. But ask any hospital nurse, nitrous oxide is a controlled substance, tightly regulated and supervised at all times. Hospital staff don't leave gas canisters sitting around like party balloons. For this to happen, Portland would have abandoned every safety protocol designed to protect laboring mothers. Then comes the famous midnight chicken run. Harry swears he dashed out at 2 a.m. for Nando's because Meghan was craving fast food. Here's the problem: Nando's closes at 11 p.m. Meanwhile, Portland is famous for 24-hour private chefs and gourmet room service. Why sneak out for cold fast food when hot, professionally prepared meals are available outside your door? Watch Harry tell these stories in interviews. There's a theatrical quality to his delivery. The way he chuckles at his own anecdotes, the perfectly timed pauses. It doesn't sound like someone recalling genuine memories. It sounds like someone who's practiced these stories until they flow smoothly, regardless of whether they actually happened. And that's the big twist. Because once you realize these details were crafted for emotional impact rather than factual accuracy, everything changes. This isn't about memory lapses or storytelling compression. This is about deliberate narrative construction. A fairy tale being built piece by piece, designed to sound magical and romantic, while obscuring whatever really happened behind closed doors. The pattern becomes impossible to ignore. Every detail serves the story's emotional arc rather than medical reality. Every contradiction supports the image rather than the truth, and that realization shifts everything. Because now we're not just questioning medical timelines, we're asking who decided what story the public would believe, and how far they were willing to bend reality to sell that narrative. The final pieces of evidence don't just contradict the official story, they expose a systematic pattern of deception that reaches into the palace itself. Initial reports proudly announced that Dr. Penelope Law delivered baby Archie. Her name appeared in official statements and press coverage. Then something strange happened. When journalists followed up, she denied any involvement in the delivery. Major newspapers quietly issued corrections without explanation. Think about the implications. The public was told a specific doctor delivered a royal baby when she wasn't even in the room. If the palace can't accurately report who was present for the birth itself, what other details were manufactured? And here's where you can see the palace spin machine in action. Watch early press conferences about Archie's birth. Palace spokespeople seem unusually nervous, checking notes more than usual, giving vague answers to basic questions. Compare that to previous royal births, where information flowed smoothly and confidently. Even the timing of announcements reveals the chaos behind the scenes. Usually, royal birth announcements follow a precise protocol developed over decades. This time, confused updates, conflicting statements, and press releases that had to be corrected multiple times. Now, some defenders argue these are minor inconsistencies. Maybe Harry misremembered, maybe privacy explains the blurred facts. But when you examine the pattern systematically, those explanations collapse. Medical procedures require specific documentation that can't be fudged. Hospital policies exist for legal reasons that go beyond privacy concerns. Staff assignments are carefully maintained for liability protection. None of these systems allow for the kind of wholesale narrative flexibility we're seeing here. One former palace insider, speaking anonymously, described the atmosphere during Archie's birth as complete chaos. They said, "Everyone was getting different instructions. Nobody knew what the actual plan was. It felt like we were making it up as we went along, which never happens with royal events." That insider account matches what we can observe in the public record, a systematic breakdown of normally reliable palace communications, resulting in contradictions that pile up until the official story becomes completely unbelievable. And that's when this shifts from curious inconsistencies to calculated deception. The pattern is too consistent, too thorough, to be anything other than intentional. The implications of this systematic deception extend far beyond one questionable birth story into the very foundation of how modern monarchy maintains public trust. Watch footage of royal correspondence during those confusing days in May 2019. These are seasoned professionals who'd covered decades of royal events with practiced expertise. Suddenly, they're visibly frustrated, checking sources multiple times, unable to provide their audiences with reliable information. One veteran reporter was caught on a hot mic saying, "I've never seen anything like this. Usually, we know exactly what's happening. This time, nobody's story matches up." That's not just professional embarrassment, that's institutional credibility cracking in real time. The emotional cost becomes clear when you look at Meghan's own behavior during this period. In later interviews, when asked about Archie's birth, her demeanor changes noticeably. The usual confident, media-savvy persona becomes more guarded. She gives shorter answers, avoids eye contact, fidgets with her hands. These aren't the behaviors of someone fondly recalling a treasured memory. These are the behaviors of someone managing a narrative they know doesn't hold up under scrutiny. And Harry? Watch him carefully during birth-related interviews. There's something almost desperate in his enthusiasm, the way he oversells the romantic details, laughs a bit too loudly at his own anecdotes. It's the performance of someone who knows he needs the audience to buy the story, regardless of whether it actually happened that way. The ripple effects extend into every subsequent royal announcement. Now, when palace officials make statements, reporters automatically assume they need independent verification. The default position has shifted from trust to skepticism. Royal protocols that had been followed for centuries were simply ignored, leaving the Queen herself out of the loop. That's not just a procedural breach, it's a fundamental breakdown in the institutional relationships that keep the monarchy functioning. For Meghan personally, this represents the complete collapse of her carefully constructed authenticity brand. She was supposed to be the transparent, modern royal bringing genuine relatability to an outdated institution. But systematic narrative manipulation reveals sophisticated image control rather than honest transparency. The human cost is genuinely heartbreaking. When even childbirth becomes a staged performance rather than a private family moment, what's left that feels real and genuine? So let's bring this full circle. Candace Owens says Meghan Markle lied about her pregnancy. After examining all the evidence, that claim isn't just supported. It's overwhelmingly validated by a mountain of contradictions that form an undeniable pattern. Medical procedures that defy standard protocol. Discharge timelines professionals call impossible. Press explanations that shift with every retelling. Royal protocols ignored for the first time in centuries. Hospital anecdotes that violate basic safety standards. Doctor identifications that had to be quietly corrected. One contradiction might be a mistake, two could be carelessness. But when contradictions pile up systematically, creating a pattern this thorough and this consistent, you're not looking at human error anymore. You're looking at deliberate narrative construction. A fairy tale carefully curated and polished until it gleams on the surface, while underneath, the cracks reveal a foundation built on deception rather than truth. This exposes something deeper than one questionable birth story. It reveals a system where reality gets rewritten to serve image management, where the most intimate human experiences become raw material for public relations campaigns, where institutional power protects manufactured narratives over basic honesty. The evidence is systematic. The pattern is clear. The implications reach far beyond Meghan, into the very heart of how modern institutions operate when they think no one is paying close enough attention to notice the contradictions. So what do we believe? The polished palace narrative with its romantic imagery and fairy tale endings, or the medical professionals, documented timelines, and insider testimony that reveal something fundamental doesn't line up between the official story and observable reality? Maybe every impossible medical detail, every protocol breach, every factual contradiction has an innocent explanation we haven't discovered. But when the cracks in a story are this systematic, this deep, and this revealing, when the contradictions form a pattern that can't be explained by coincidence, the whole carefully constructed fairy tale begins to crumble. And once you see those cracks clearly, you can never look at the royal narrative the same way again.